There's a level of commitment that makes people look at you with a mix of confusion and respect. And today, you'll discover exactly how to get there. You've seen that person who never misses, not because they're motivated, but because something deeper drives them. While everyone else negotiates with themselves every morning, they simply move. No internal debate, no motivation required. They call it Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit that transforms ordinary humans into unstoppable forces. But there's a catch. This system isn't for people looking for another motivation hack or Monday morning energy boost. This is for those ready to abandon the weakness of motivation entirely and build something that never runs out. But before I show you how it works, I need you to do 3 things. Subscribe to this channel, leave a like on this video, and comment below what duty you're committing to today. Not what motivates you, but what you must do regardless of how you feel. This helps me a lot and shows me that you're genuinely interested in changing. Let's go. Chapter 1. The Monday Warrior. His name was Marcus, 32 years old, marketing manager at a mid-sized tech company. Every Sunday night, he'd watch videos like this one. Motivation videos, discipline content, warrior mindset compilations. By the time he went to sleep, he was ready to conquer the world. Monday morning, 5:30 a.m., alarm screaming. For exactly 7 seconds, he was that warrior from the videos. Then his actual thoughts arrived. I'll start tomorrow. Today I'm too tired. This week is too busy. Next Monday will be better. By Monday afternoon, the motivation was completely gone. Wednesday, he'd watch another video, get another hit of that feeling. Friday, he'd already be planning next Monday's fresh start. This cycle had repeated for 2 years. 2 years of Sunday night warriors who surrendered by Wednesday morning. The problem wasn't his discipline. The problem was that he was building his entire life on the most unreliable foundation possible, how he felt. Until the day he discovered what the samurai knew 800 years ago. Chapter 2. The Lie of Motivation. Here's what nobody tells you about motivation. A behavioral psychologist from Stanford University, who's been studying habit formation for 15 years, discovered something that destroys the entire self-help industry. Motivation is designed to run out. It's not a flaw in you. It's the nature of the emotion itself. Motivation is your brain's emergency energy system. It evolved to get you moving in short bursts when something exciting or threatening appeared. Hunt the deer. Run from the tiger. That's it. Your ancestors didn't need motivation to brush their teeth every day because they didn't have teeth to brush. They needed it for exceptional moments. You're trying to run your entire life on an emergency system. You want to know what never happens. A samurai in 1200 AD waking up and asking himself if he feels motivated to follow Bushido today. The concept would be incomprehensible to him. They had something else entirely. They called it on, which translates roughly to duty or obligation, but those English words are too weak to capture what it meant. On was the debt you owed to your parents, your teacher, your lord, your ancestors, and your own future self. This debt could never be fully repaid. You could only honor it through correct action. A neuroscientist from MIT who has been studying decision-making for 12 years found that the brain processes duty-based decisions completely differently from motivation-based decisions. When you act from motivation, your prefrontal cortex is in constant negotiation with your limbic system. Should I? Do I feel like it? What if I don't? This negotiation consumes enormous mental energy. You're exhausted before you even start. But when you act from duty, from something you've defined as non-negotiable, the negotiation never happens. The decision was made once, permanently, at a higher level. Your moment-to-moment feelings become irrelevant data. The brain stops offering them as input. Marcus discovered this on a random Tuesday morning. Not Monday when motivation peaks, but Tuesday when he felt absolutely nothing. His alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. His brain immediately offered the usual negotiation. You're tired. You've had a long week already. Starting tomorrow makes more sense. But this time he didn't engage with the negotiation, not because he felt motivated to ignore it, but because he'd made a different decision 3 days earlier. He had written one sentence in his notebook. I am the kind of person who trains at 5:30 a.m. regardless of circumstance. Notice the language, not I will try to, or I want to, or I'm motivated to. I am. present tense, identity statement. This is who I am, not what I'm attempting to become. He got up, not because he wanted to, because that's what the person he claimed to be does in this situation. Chapter 3. The Temple That Never Negotiates. In the mountains of Japan, there's a Zen temple that has maintained the same schedule since 1244. The monks wake at 3:30 a.m., not 3:25, not 3:40, 3:30. They've done this for 781 years. Through wars, earthquakes, typhoons, personal tragedy, illness, and every possible human condition, you think they wake up motivated every morning. A Western journalist once asked the head monk how they maintain motivation for such an extreme schedule. The monk looked genuinely confused by the question. Finally, he said, "We don't maintain motivation. We maintain the schedule. The schedule doesn't care how we feel. This is the part where your brain will offer resistance. That sounds robotic. That sounds like you're suppressing your humanity. What about listening to your body? What about self-compassion? Here's what that thinking actually creates: gaps. Gaps are where you die. Not literally, but the version of you that could have been unstoppable. Every gap you allow, every negotiation you entertain, every time you let how you feel determine what you do, you're teaching your brain that the commitment isn't real, that it's conditional, that there's a magic feeling you're waiting for before you become who you said you'd be. The samurai understood this at a level that would be called extreme today. There's a famous story of a young samurai who asked his master when he would finally feel ready for battle. The master told him, "You're ready when you understand that ready is not a feeling. It's a decision you made yesterday." A Harvard researcher who has been studying high performers for 20 years found something remarkable about the top 0.1% in any field. They don't have more motivation than average performers. They have less internal debate. The decision about whether to act was made at a higher level, often years earlier. Their daily actions aren't decisions anymore. They're just what happens next. Marcus started applying this immediately. He identified every area where he was still negotiating: morning training, evening reading, weekly meal prep, monthly budget review. Each one had been conditional, dependent on whether he felt like it. He made them unconditional. Not through some burst of motivation or perfect morning where everything aligned. On a random Thursday evening when he felt tired and would have preferred to watch another video about discipline instead of actually being disciplined, he wrote, "I am someone who trains every morning at 5:30 a.m. I am someone who reads 30 minutes before bed. I am someone who prepares Sunday meals every Saturday afternoon. I am someone who reviews finances on the 1st of every month." Then he did something crucial. He crossed out the phrase "no matter how I feel" from each statement, because that phrase still makes it about feelings. The true version doesn't mention feelings at all. They're irrelevant. Chapter 4. The first wall day 3 arrived exactly when it always does. This is where motivation dies and duty gets tested. Marcus's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. He'd slept poorly. Real-world problem, not an excuse. 4 hours of broken sleep because of a work crisis that kept him up until 1 a.m. The old Marcus would have negotiated. "This is one of those times where rest is more important. I'll train tomorrow with proper sleep. That's the smart, balanced approach." And he would have been right back in the cycle. Monday warrior, Wednesday surrender. The new Marcus got up. Not because he felt good about it. He felt terrible. Every cell in his body wanted to stay in bed. But there's something that happens when you act despite that pull. Something the monks at that temple have known for 8 centuries. You kill a part of yourself that needed to die. Here's what a neuroscientist from Yale, who has been studying willpower for 15 years, discovered. Every time you override the impulse to negotiate, to check how you feel, to make your action conditional on your emotional state, you're literally weakening those neural pathways. The connection between "I don't feel like it" and "therefore I won't do it" gets weaker. Simultaneously, you're strengthening a completely different pathway. The one between "this is who I am" and "therefore this is what I do." After enough repetitions, the old pathway becomes so weak that your brain stops even offering the negotiation. It knows the answer. It stops asking the question. But here's where it gets interesting. On day 14, something unexpected happened to Marcus. He woke up at 5:28 a.m., 2 minutes before his alarm. His body had adjusted. But more importantly, His identity had adjusted. He no longer identified as someone trying to build a morning training habit. He was someone who trains in the morning. The trying was over. The being had begun. His co-workers started noticing something different. Not that he looked more fit, though he did. Something else. One of them finally put it into words during a meeting. "You've been different lately, like more solid." I don't know how else to describe it. Marcus knew exactly what he meant. When you stop negotiating with yourself, other people sense it. They can't articulate what they're sensing, but they feel it. You become what the Japanese call fudoshin, immovable mind. Not because you're rigid, but because you're no longer being pushed around by every impulse and feeling. You've chosen who you are. And that person doesn't negotiate. Chapter 5. The Real Problem. But here the real problem began. Day 40 arrived, and Marcus faced something that motivation could never have prepared him for. Success. He'd been consistent for 40 days. Morning training, evening reading, weekend meal prep, monthly budget review. All of it without a single gap. His friends noticed, his girlfriend commented on it. His boss mentioned his increased focus. Everything was working. And that's when his brain offered him the most dangerous negotiation of all. "You've proven you can do it. You've built the discipline. Now you can relax a bit. You've earned some flexibility. That's what balance looks like." This is where most people die. Not in the beginning when motivation runs out, but in the middle when they've had enough success to believe the war is over. A researcher from Princeton, who has been studying habit relapse for 12 years, calls this the completion illusion. Your brain mistakes proof of capability for proof of permanence. The samurai had a principle for exactly this moment. They called it zanshin, which means remaining mind or sustained alertness. It's the principle that after you strike, your guard stays up. After you win, your training continues. After you prove you can, you keep proving you can. Because here's what you don't understand yet. Discipline isn't something you achieve and then maintain. It's something you choose and then choose again. Forever. The day you stop choosing it actively is the day it starts disappearing. Not immediately. That's what makes it dangerous. Slowly, imperceptibly, one tiny negotiation at a time. Marcus almost fell for it. Day 43, 5:30 a.m. He woke up and for the first time in over a month he thought, maybe just today. Not to quit. Just to take one day off. He'd earned it, right? Then he remembered something he'd read about those Zen monks. They don't have rest days built into their schedule because rest isn't the opposite of discipline. Rest is part of the schedule. If rest isn't scheduled, it's not rest. It's negotiation. He got up. And in that moment, he understood what Yamato Damashii actually means. It's not the spirit that gets you started. It's the spirit that keeps you going when going is no longer impressive or exciting or new. When it's just what you do. When nobody's watching, when there's no reward coming, when you've already proven you can. That's when you find out if you actually changed or if you just had a good 40 days. Chapter 6. The Identity Shift. By day 66, something had fundamentally changed, not just in Marcus's actions, but in how he saw himself. A neuroscientist from Columbia, who has been studying identity formation for 18 years, discovered that it takes approximately 66 days of consistent action for your brain to update its model of who you are. Before 66 days, you're someone who is doing a thing. After 66 days, you're someone who does that thing. The shift sounds subtle, it changes everything, because once your identity updates, maintaining the action becomes effortless, not easy. Effortless. There's a difference. Easy means it doesn't require effort. Effortless means the effort is so integrated into who you are that you don't experience it as effort anymore. Like brushing your teeth. It requires effort. You never think about the effort. You just brush your teeth because that's what people do. Marcus's girlfriend noticed it first. You don't talk about your morning training anymore. You used to mention it every day. Now you just do it and move on. She was right. He'd stopped identifying as someone building a habit. He'd become someone who had this habit as part of his basic identity. But the real test came on day 73. He got sick. Real sick, not negotiation sick. Fever, body aches, the kind where getting out of bed feels like a genuine physical challenge. Old Marcus would have taken the week off, obviously. You can't train when you're sick. That's not discipline, that's stupidity. New Marcus modified but didn't stop. He couldn't do his full training. So he did 10 minutes of gentle movement, not because 10 minutes would make a physical difference. Because his identity was being tested. The samurai didn't stop being samurai when they got sick. They adjusted their expression of it. This is the principle they called ku, or emptiness, but not in the way most people think. Emptiness doesn't mean absence. It means flexibility in form while maintaining essence. The form of your discipline might change based on circumstances. The essence, the commitment to being that person, never changes. A researcher from Berkeley, who has been studying sustained behavior change for 20 years, found that people who successfully maintain transformations for years have one thing in common. They stop seeing their disciplines as things they do and start seeing them as evidence of who they are. They're not performing disciplines, they're performing their identity. By day 90, Marcus's transformation was complete, but also just beginning. His body had changed, obviously. 45 days of consistent morning training does that. But something else had changed that his colleagues kept commenting on without being able to name it. One of them finally said it directly. "Dude, your consistency is honestly kind of scary. Like I've never seen you miss. Do you ever just take a day and be normal?" Marcus smiled. "I am being normal. My normal." That's when he understood the final piece. The goal isn't to become so disciplined that people admire you. The goal is to become so disciplined that people find it a little unsettling, because that means you've left normal behind, and normal people get normal results. Chapter 7. The One Way. There's a concept in Bushido called Ichigo Ichi. It's usually translated as one time, one meeting, or once in a lifetime. It means that each moment is unique and will never come again. The samurai applied this to everything, especially to their daily disciplines. Every morning training session is once in a lifetime. This exact morning, this exact state of your body, this exact configuration of circumstances will never exist again. You can't get it back tomorrow, you can't make it up later. This moment's choice is permanent. When Marcus finally understood this, it changed his relationship to consistency entirely. He wasn't being consistent because he was disciplined. He was being consistent because he understood that this day, this moment, was the only time he'd ever have this day, this moment. Tomorrow's discipline doesn't redeem today's negotiation. It just means tomorrow you were disciplined and today you weren't. A neuroscientist from Oxford, who has been studying temporal perception for 15 years, discovered something that validates this ancient principle. Your brain doesn't actually store every moment. It stores patterns. If you're consistent, your brain files all those moments under one identity pattern. This is who I am. If you're inconsistent, your brain files them under a different pattern. This is what I'm trying to be. The difference determines everything, because your identity isn't determined by your peaks. It's determined by your pattern. You can have a perfect week. That proves you're capable. Only a perfect pattern proves who you are. By month 6, Marcus had become unrecognizable. Not just physically, though he'd transformed his body, but something in how he moved through the world. His girlfriend told him that watching him get up at 5:30 a.m. every single morning without hesitation had changed how she saw discipline entirely. "I used to think discipline was about forcing yourself to do hard things," she said. "But watching you, it's not force. It's just what you do. Like it's not even a choice anymore. Is that what it feels like?" Marcus thought about it. It's not that it's not a choice. It's that I made the choice once completely, at a level deeper than daily feelings. Now I'm just honoring that choice. The choice was the hard part. The action is just what follows. This is what Yamato Damashii actually is. Not motivation that comes and goes like weather. Not discipline that you force through gritted teeth every morning. But a decision about who you are that's so complete, so total, that your daily actions become inevitable expressions of that identity. The samurai didn't need motivation to follow Bushido, because Bushido wasn't something they did. It was something they were. The code and the person had become one thing. There was no separation, no negotiation, No gap between the ideal and the actual. That's what you're building toward. Not a version of you that's really good at being disciplined. A version of you where discipline and identity are the same thing. Where the question "should I" never arises because the answer is already contained in "I am." Chapter 8. The Death and the Birth. Marcus's friends threw him a birthday party on a Saturday evening. Great party, went late. He had a genuinely good time. Got home at 1:30 a.m., slightly drunk, definitely tired, completely happy. Set his alarm for 5:30 a.m. like he does every single night. His girlfriend watched him do it and asked the question everyone asks eventually. "You're really going to train in 4 hours after this? Why can't you just skip tomorrow?" One day won't matter. And here's where 8 months of Yamato Damashii revealed itself completely. You're right that one day won't matter. That's exactly why I'm doing it. Because if I'll abandon it when it doesn't matter, I never really had it. I only had good intentions in favorable conditions. 5:30 a.m. came exactly when it always does. He felt terrible. Headache, dehydration, 4 hours of sleep, every reason in the world to stay in bed. He got up. Not because he's superhuman, because he's decided who humans can be, and he's being that. 20 minutes into his training, something happened that he'd read about but never experienced. The resistance disappeared, not gradually, suddenly. One moment he was fighting every rep, the next moment he was just training. His body had caught up to his decision. The pain was still there, the suffering was gone. This is what the Zen monks mean when they talk about mushin, or no mind. Not that your mind is empty, but that there's no separation between the intention and the action. You're not thinking about training, you are training. The thinker and the action have become one thing. A psychologist from Johns Hopkins, who has been studying flow states for 12 years, discovered that high performers don't actually experience less resistance than normal people. They experience the same resistance. They've just stopped believing that resistance means anything about whether they should act. Most people think resistance is information. I feel resistance, therefore this isn't the right time, or I'm not ready, or I should wait for better conditions. High performers understand that resistance is just a feeling. Feelings are weather. You don't cancel who you are because of weather. By month 9, something had shifted in how people related to Marcus. His boss gave him a project that was described as impossible timeline, needs someone who just won't quit. His friends stopped inviting him to things that conflicted with his morning routine because they knew it was non-negotiable. His girlfriend told her friends he was kind of obsessive, but in a way that makes you respect him. That word, obsessive. It used to bother him. Now he understood it as the highest compliment. Because obsessive just means more committed than the person using the word. To someone who negotiates every morning, someone who doesn't negotiate looks obsessed. To someone who doesn't negotiate, that same behavior looks like integrity. The final test came on day 273. His company offered him a promotion. Dream position, significant raise, one condition. The role required frequent early morning flights. 5 a.m. departures, which meant 3:30 a.m. wake-ups on travel days, which meant his training routine would be impossible to maintain in its current form. Old Marcus would have been torn, career versus discipline, success versus consistency. Which do you choose? New Marcus didn't see a conflict. He called the hiring manager and asked one question. Is there flexibility on which days I travel? The manager said yes, he could largely control his travel schedule. Marcus took the job, not because he was willing to compromise his discipline, but because the job didn't require him to. He restructured his training schedule. Travel days became active recovery days, lighter movement, mental training. Home days became full training days. The form changed. The essence didn't. His co-workers in the new role noticed immediately. One of them mentioned it in a team meeting. I don't know how you do it. I've seen you arrive from a 6 a.m. flight and still hit the hotel gym before meetings. That's not normal. Marcus replied with words that had become his personal code. You're right. It's not normal. It's who I am. The transformation was complete. Not because he'd reached some endpoint where discipline becomes easy, but because he'd realized there is no endpoint. There's only the person you're being right now, and right now, and right now. Each moment is Ichigo Ichi, once in a lifetime. The person you're being in this moment is the person you actually are. The death had happened so gradually he hadn't noticed it. The death of the person who needed to feel motivated. The death of the person who negotiated with circumstances. The death of the person who had good intentions and flexible follow-through. That person had died somewhere between day 1 and day 273, not dramatically, but completely. And something else had been born. Not a perfect person, not someone who never struggles, but someone whose struggle doesn't determine their action. Someone who understands that Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit, isn't about feeling brave or motivated or ready. It's about being the person you decided to be regardless of what you feel. His girlfriend said it best on the morning of day 300. She watched him get up at 5:30 a.m. like he had every single morning for 10 months. "You know what's scary?" she said. "I literally can't imagine you not doing this anymore. Like the person who would stay in bed isn't you. I don't know who that would be, but it wouldn't be you." And she was right. The person who would negotiate, who would check how he felt before deciding what to do, who would let circumstances determine his identity, that person had died, not suppressed, not controlled, dead. And the person standing in the mirror was someone else entirely. Someone who had chosen duty over feeling, identity over impulse, who over how. The samurai had a phrase for this state: shi nigao, the face of death. Not because you look dead, but because you've died to your weaker self. You've killed the part of you that needed comfort more than it needed character. And once that part dies, what remains is unbreakable, not because it's hard, but because there's nothing left to break. Your motivation will betray you. It will arrive Monday morning with promises and abandon you by Wednesday afternoon, with excuses. Your feelings will lie to you. They'll tell you that tired means stop, that resistance means wrong, that one day doesn't matter. They'll negotiate your dreams into dust while making you feel reasonable the entire time. But duty? Duty doesn't negotiate. Yamato Damashii doesn't ask how you feel. The Japanese spirit that built samurai, that sustained monks through 8 centuries, that transforms ordinary humans into forces of nature, it only asks one question: who have you decided to be? And then it waits to see if your actions match your answer. Not today, not this week, not when conditions are perfect, right now, this moment, this choice. Because this moment is the only moment you actually have. Tomorrow's discipline is fantasy. Yesterday's discipline is memory. This moment's choice is the only thing that's real. The question remains, are you ready for this level of transformation? Not to feel more motivated, not to have better discipline, but to kill the part of you that needs to feel ready before you act. To die to your weaker self so something stronger can be born. To stop being someone who does disciplined things when motivated and become someone who is discipline embodied. Because that's what this really is. Not a better morning routine, not a more productive schedule. The death of your inconsistent self, the birth of your unbreakable self, the transformation from someone who tries to be disciplined into someone who is discipline, from someone who follows Yamato Damashii into someone who embodies it. And when you get there, when you've been consistent so long that people start using words like obsessive and scary and not normal to describe your commitment, you'll know exactly how to respond. Not with explanation or justification, just with one word: great. Because their discomfort is your confirmation. When your discipline makes others uncomfortable, you're not doing something wrong. You're finally operating at the right level. The level where duty determines action, where identity determines choice, where who you are matters more than how you feel. That's Yamato Damashii, not the motivation that arrives and leaves like weather, the spirit that remains like mountains, the commitment that outlasts feelings, the identity that determines destiny. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss future content that will continue this transformation. Comment below with your commitment, not what motivates you, but what you are regardless of how you feel. And remember, the consistency that scares others is the only consistency worth having. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.